Hi, I'm Josh. I live in WA, a proud North River liver, and I am 30 plus GST this year, and I am a sand groper. Uh, I grew up in Mumbai in India and lived there for the first 16 years of my life, and then my family and I moved to Perth um, around that delicious time as a teenager. Moved to Perth. I'd been to Perth a few times before, and fell in love with the people, the place, the beaches, the weather, and decided to move and have called it home ever since. Oh, it was a tumultuous time because I had finished high school because you graduate high school in year 10 in India. So I started university and then moved to Perth and went back to high school. So that was interesting. Um, And apart from like dealing with wearing uniforms again, I actually you're uprooting yourself from your friends, your network, your very crucial long-term friendships that you're building at that age, and uh, have like I've ended up being at that age, needing those friendships and relationships to rely on, and needing to build them from scratch again. So when we moved here, I found there were pockets of people that were open and welcoming, as well as actually standoffish and not welcoming. And I think at the time I took it personally. You know, I looked different, I sounded different, um, and I was new. But looking back now, I think in general people wanted to be welcoming, and they cared. They just had too much going on themselves. Oh, it's completely shaped the way I see and interact with people when they're in a new setting, whether it's Perth, whether it's WA, or a new workplace, a new job, a new setting socially. It makes me want to go up, like seek them out and be their friend and let them know that it's okay and they're welcome. Yeah. I think there's a misnomer around this tall poppy syndrome and even a laid back or a too laid back of a culture of Perth or of WA. And I think we're past that. We're not there anymore. And arguably we probably haven't been. But what I love is what makes up the culture of WA, which is yes, a lot of it is the beaches, but then what's the kind of people that attracts? Who are the kind of people that attract to the beaches? People that love the visual stimulus in their lives. They love the vitamin D. They love going for a swim, and so I think all of that starts to fit into or starts to shape the kind of person that's attracted to staying here and to being here. And inadvertently, that actually leads to a melting pot of diverse backgrounds. But I think it also brings this beautiful mix of people together. That's people have their diverse sets of focus in innovation or in technology or in working with the rest of the world and connecting with the rest of the world. I think I'd love to see a systemic change in the way we describe WA and talk about WA. I think we've called it laid back and we've called it isolated, and that time's been, I think. And I think it's wise to realize that just because it's a geographical isolation or a separation doesn't mean it is disconnected. Um, you know, with technology and with the way the world is moving and agile workplace models, I think there really isn't any reason why we need to be isolated in that sense and in that context. I also would love to see that translate into, believing that we still have a tall poppy syndrome, if at all. I think like there is evidence of people championing, the people around them, and egging them on to do well and to do better. Um, and I think sometimes the language of going back to that narrative actually does more harm um, than realizing where we are and what we're actually doing really well. I've definitely had experience and evidence of being championed, of not being pulled down, of of people coming alongside and working with and yes, and championing, and I would love to be able to do that for other people too, because I think it's not just, you could call it karma, you could call it, do unto others as you would like done unto you, or love your neighbor, and all of those narratives fit really, but it's just about like this idea that we're built to be in relationship with other people and with others, and the communities that we interact with, and those are quite those are only valuable because of people's input into them. I thrive in community, and I've got beautiful communities that I feel very proud to be a part of, whether it's in a faith context through our church, or within an innovation hub or a space, or within a creative field, and a conglomerate of artists and creatives, but also just sometimes the real niche things like dads are becoming new dads or becoming fathers, and having young kids, and all of those things have um, really neat aspects that connect people together. And I really, really love being able to share knowledge, ideas, struggles, and having that support, building those relationships, having the support, having shoulders to lean on and cry on sometimes, but also having like strong arms to help with the heavy lifting. I love when artists through the centuries in Europe have actually depicted the idea of Trinity, and they've actually done it in form of three rabbits, three hares, like running around in a circle, and it's depicting a never-ending, eternal dance or a run, and not run as in a strive, but it's the dance as in like togetherness and belonging. And I love this idea that humankind was created out of an abundance of love within the Trinity. And so I think right from the very fiber of our being, we're wired to appreciate, not just appreciate and love, but actually yearn for and thrive in relationship with other people around us. Now, there are things that can separate us. There are things that can, divide us in terms of thoughts and opinions and ideas. But there is so much more that actually aligns us. There is so much more that brings us together. And just because of diversity of thought doesn't mean we shouldn't have a relationship with someone. One of the most powerful things I think we can do is the context of the idea of iron sharpening iron, in the of being able to pose an opposing idea and actually rebut that or rebuke that, and be able to have discourse, healthy discourse, and why you think and believe the way you do, and being able to have that in relationship and actually end that discussion and still say, I'll see you on Saturday at your house for the barbecue. Like it is meant to be a part and parcel of our relationships and our togetherness, and I think it gets forgotten or sidelined because we think we just need to align with people that believe or think the same way because it's easier. And sadly, that's maybe easier for the time being, but it's not actually giving us an access or insight into so much more. A very visual image of this for me is my own understanding of that scripture in the Bible that says God made man or mankind in his image, or in their image, or in her image. And I love this idea that I kind of paint in my mind's eye is kind of like a mirror, and the deity of God, or the entity of God, seeing himself or themselves in the mirror. And then by creating mankind, or humankind, have actually crushed that mirror into tiny pieces. So when they look at the reflection, it's not just, it is the same being, the same person, but it's actually tiny facets. And every time they, like if you were to look into a shattered mirror that's still on the floor, you'd see a different aspect of yourself in that. And I think those shards of glass or of mirror actually depict the personalities that we carry. And only when they kind of come together do they tell a bigger picture of that portion of who God is, or that portion of who we are, in the bigger scheme of things. And I think our goal could be, engaging with that many parts or pieces of us that connect with the ones around us to form a picture that one day might be the most that we ever understand about us, about others, about humanity, and about God. To the people that would say Perth is cliquey, I would say yes, it is. But I don't believe that it's any different to any other part of the world. There are aspects of there are different communities in the world that are cliquey in their own way, and I think that percentage is more or less the same in Perth. We just don't have that many people here as compared to the bigger cities, and so it's harder to then go and find another community that maybe you feel aligns with you and what you want. My challenge there is to actually both sides. The challenge obviously is to people that are building or part of a community that looks insular and it isn't quite as welcoming to people that might want to be a part of that. I would say remember what it felt like when you were on the outside, and how would you want that to be different, knowing that you've got a part in shaping that the experience for the other person. And then to the people on the outside in that context, I would say, don't give up, because yes, it may be true that there are cliquey spaces and there are cliquey communities, but don't give up in the sense that people learn, people are growing, and also that if that community isn't a right fit, then that's okay. There are so many aspects and so many ways to be able to lean in, and find those spaces that mean a lot to you. I would say, rather than shutting off yourself, I'd actually say look within, look deeper, just to look at and find out what are those things that may not be what you go to look for a community in that aspect, but it could be a very subreddit thread equivalent of a community in Perth, and that might be exactly what you need. If I could go back in time and give myself advice, maybe 10 years ago or 20 years ago, I would say the words, it's going to be okay. Like, I am living proof at 33 that you turned out okay, that life's going to be okay and you're going to make it, and that there's going to be curveballs and there's going to be ups and downs and hard times and tough things to navigate, but you're going to be okay. And you have this vision of me to hold on to 20 years from now. If I was to speak to my kids and tell them in the context of what they can look forward to the world, or advice, I would say a lot of what's being handed down to your generation is not great in the context of the earth and the way we're leaving it, and the state of affairs, be it be housing and the cost of living. But there is so much that has been achieved as well. There is so much that's been done well and done for good. And I would say, find out the aspects that drives your passion, or that you're passionate about, and run with it. Stand on top of the shoulders of the giants that have gone before you and what they've accomplished. And if my ceiling and everything that I've accomplished in my life could be the floor for what you guys can step on and build from, then I think it's going to be a beautiful world.